Hello everyone and welcome back to Mr. Motegi. So in this video, we are going to look in detail about the 2017 model Bmw S1000rr. And to know more about this bike, let's get into the video. So guys, right now we are riding the Bmw S1000rr, which happens to be a dream bike for most of us. And in fact, this bike is my personal favorite when compared to the other literclass super bikes like ZX Tenna and the Yamaha R1. And on to our left has the Yamaha R1 riding with us, and that bike is one of the direct rivals for this Bmw S1000rr. So let me know in the comment section that which one of these bikes is one of your favorite of yours. And talking about the technical specs, the heart of this bike happens to be a 999cc inline 4-cylinder 16-valve engine which produces 193 horsepower and 113 Nm of torque. And there's no doubt about the performance of this bike. This bike is simply on the next level, and you simply feel the adrenaline rush every time when you throttle it. And this bike redlines up to 16,000 RPM. So imagine about the performance of this bike. This bike gets a 6-speed manual transmission, and the gear ratios are perfectly matched, resulting on a wider range of peak power output. And also there's one cool feature which happens to be the bi-directional quick shifter. And the main use of this bi-directional quick shifter is that you don't have to press the clutch every time in order to change the gears. And with this bi-directional quick shifter, you can easily change the gears without any hassle, and thus improving the comfort and convenience of driving this bike. Also, this bike has 4 drive modes on offer: a race mode, a rain mode, a sport mode, and a sneak mode. So on rain mode, the power is cut to 150 bhp with a reduced torque, and the throttle response will be more gentle. And with this mode, it reduces the wheel spin with an increased traction and a lot more grip on offer. And the other mode, which happens to be the sport, which is the default setting, it gets a full 193 horsepower at the crank and approximately 183 horsepower at the wheels, providing a fast but smooth throttle response. And the braking force is applied to both front and rear wheels along with the operation of wheelie protection. And there's another mode in this bike which happens to be the race mode, and with this mode you get the full power with the instant throttle response, and the braking force is applied to both front and rear wheels partially. And with this mode, the rear wheel lift detection will not work, and the wheelie protection will not also operate. So with this mode, the longer drifts and brief wheelies are also possible. And last but not the least, there's one mode on offer which happens to be the sneak mode. So with the sneak mode, you get an aggressive and an instant throttle response, and the wheelies will be allowed up to a lean angle of 23 degrees and also up to 5 seconds. And the ABS does not operate only when the foot brake is used. Also, the rear wheel lift detection will not work in this mode, making it the best mode out of the 4 to do all kinds of stunts. And overall, this bike is simply amazing to drive, and the power output is simply phenomenal, making you to thoroughly enjoy while driving this bike. Also, the suspension setup is extremely superb. It gets a 46mm upside down forks at the front, and at the rear you get a cast aluminum swing arm. And overall, the ride quality of this bike is simply amazing and feels very composed while going over the corners, providing a greater confidence to the rider to push it even harder and faster. And coming to the brakes part, the brakes are very sure-footed and they offer great stopping power. You get a 320mm disc at the front and you get a 200mm disc at the rear. And one special thing is that this bike gets Bmw brakes on offer. It gets a 4-piston calipers at the front and a single piston caliper at the rear. And the tires on this bike are also wide enough and they offer very good grip. You get 120/70 section tires at the front and the 190/55 section tires at the rear. And overall, this bike feels amazing to drive, and you might be shocked when you hear the acceleration results of this bike. This bike can accelerate 0 to 100 km/h in just 3 seconds and can finish a quarter mile in just 10.4 seconds at 152 miles per hour. And the top speed of this bike is around 299 km/h. And this bike can accelerate 0 to 200 km/h in just 7 seconds and can reach 0 to 300 km/h in just 21.3 seconds. So this is definitely one fast bike. So overall this happens to be an amazing little class super bike. But one main problem is that this happens to be a track oriented bike and it is definitely not suitable for our Indian roads. And also you would find it difficult to release the full potential of this bike. And you need to be definitely careful while driving this bike in such speeds. But still you can definitely have fun like how we are driving right now. And one thing to be noted that this bike has a lot of features on offer, and when comparing to the other litter class super bikes like the Yamaha R1, the Kawasaki ZX-10R and the Honda CBR 1000rr, this bike has a ton of features on offer which you can't expect on the other litter class super bikes. And one main thing to be noted is that this bike is the lightest when compared to the other litter class super bikes, and the curb weight of this bike is just 204 kgs, making it the lightest when compared to the all other super bikes. And this makes the bike to accelerate even more faster and quicker and hitting the top speeds in no time. And also due to its lightweight, this bike feels a lot more nimble, agile and greater in terms of handling, and also it is easy to maneuver and manipulate. And also this bike gets heated grip features on offer, and what it does is it makes it warmer, making it good to hold. But actually this feature is definitely not designed for our country, but still you can use it while going over hill stations. So right now we have the Bmw S1000rr's 2017 model. And one special thing about this bike is its asymmetrical headlights, and this asymmetrical headlights has a separate fan base which we surely miss in the 2020 model. And the side fairings of this bike has been designed in a bold and a rugged manner with an aerodynamical shape, and also there's S1000rr written on the sides along with the BMW symbol embedded on it. And coming to the side profile, this bike looks super cool and super dope. And it is definitely a head turner when compared to the other litter class super bikes of the ZX-10R and the Yamaha R1. And this is the bike's eagle-eye view, which looks simply amazing and stunning. And the rear view of this bike is simply staggering for sure. And this bike has a proper stance of a litter class super bike. And in terms of design, when you compare it with the Yamaha R1 and the Kawasaki ZX-10R, this bike is simply the best. And in fact, when compared to the latest version of this S1000rr, this 2017 model looks way more better than the current latest version of this bike. And one main reason is that this bike has asymmetrical headlights which we definitely miss on the current ongoing model. The headlamps are projector setup, but still these aren't LEDs and happens to be a normal halogen setup. And this bike gets 17-inch rims on both front and back tires. The front tires happens to be 120/70 sections and the rear tires happens to be 190/55 sections. And this bike gets ventilated disc brakes on both front and back wheels. You get a 320mm disc at the front and a 220mm disc at the rear. Also this bike has Brembo brakes on offer. This bike gets a 4-piston caliper at the front and a single piston brake caliper at the rear. And coming to the suspension part, this bike gets a 46mm upside down forks at the front, and at the rear you get a cast aluminum swing arm. And in order to reduce the curb weight of this bike, there's a lot of carbon fiber materials used on different parts of this bike. For instance, you have carbon fiber materials on the fairings, the mud guards, the underbelly and different parts of this bike. And overall these carbon fiber materials have really helped this bike in reducing the curb weight. So the curb weight happens to be just 204 kgs, which is lighter than most of the any other litter class super bikes. And this is the engine of this bike. So the heart of this bike happens to be a 999cc inline 4-cylinder 16-valve engine which produces 193 horsepower and 113 Newton meters of torque. And this is the instrument cluster of this bike. The tachometer is provided on the left side, and other than that everything is provided on the digital. You get a digital speedometer, a digital odometer along with 2 trip meters, and also various features and functions like selecting the drive modes. And these are the seats of the bike which should be very comfortable for the rider, but the pillion seat is just for a formality, so the person who is sitting as a pillion wouldn't feel that comfortable. And the height of the seat happens to be 815mm, and it would be comfortable for passengers who are above 5.5 feet tall, and for passengers who are below 5.4 feet wouldn't feel comfortable to drive this bike. And the rear end of this bike looks amazing, and the design of the tail lights also looks super cool. You get all LED units along with the LED indicators. And this is the fuel tank of this bike, having a capacity of 17.5 liters, which is pretty much respectable for a litter class super bike. And the claim range for this bike happens to be 210 kilometers. and the side view mirrors of this bike is wide enough to an extent, providing a greater visibility. And the ground clearance of this bike happens to be just 120 mm, which is quite low, and you have to be careful while going over the Indian road speed breakers. And once again, in order to reduce the weight of this bike, there's a lot of carbon plastic materials being used. And also this bike gets a bridge type frame which has been provided on a cast aluminum material. And the owner of this bike has upgraded to the SC Project exhaust, and the exhaust note is on the next level. And coming to the part which we should never consider on this bike, the fuel efficiency. The fuel efficiency of this bike happens to be 12 km per liter as per ARAI. And with the style of how we are riding right now, you will get just 8 to 10 km per liter. But still, if you ride this bike at a constant speed of 100 to 120 km per liter, you would get a mileage of around 15 km per liter for sure. And back in those days, this bike was provided on 4 variants. One happens to be the lower trim, the H2 variant, and the mid variant happens to be the HV4, and a standard variant, and the one we're riding right now which happens to be the Pro variant. So back in those days, the price of this bike was around 20.64 lakhs. But currently this model has been discontinued, and we have the 2020 model right now which has a similar price point as this bike. So that's all everyone. If you like this video, you know what to do. Please like, share, comment and subscribe, and don't forget to press the bell icon so that you will get the notifications of the new videos and updates on my channel. See you guys in the next video.